Waking up has never felt this good.
I love the music.
Best music.
Breakfast with Friends on CCFM 107.5. 107.5.
Neon Feathers, the group. The song is featuring David Dunn, and it's called The Long Way Home. I love the chorus. It says, "We're not where we're going, and we're not lost where we are. Taking the long way home, just taking the long way home. There's beauty on the back roads, even when this journey's hard. Taking the long way home, just taking the long way home." Sure. So please remember, this earth is not our final destination. This that we call life as it is now, it's not. And of course, you know, we won't miss the view while we're on this climb. Enjoy the view. Enjoy the flowers. Stop and smell the flowers. You know, stop and engage friends and be a part of their lives and family. You know, spend time in that. But at the same time, remember, this is not our final destination.
Yeah.
This is not our home.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man, that's so good.
It is, hey?
So good. That ministers to my heart so much.
I'm glad. I figured it would. Okay. So yesterday, Megan, you were driving and able to listen to the Folks in the Family just around 8:30 in the morning.
And mind blown.
Really?
Yeah, completely. Just this woman's story is absolutely incredible. And if you missed it, you can go into their website, safamily.co.za, and you can listen to that first part. It's a two-parter, very thankfully. So the second part will play today, but you want to go and check out the first part of that message. She was actually the director of a Planned Parenthood at this clinic that aborts babies.
Sure.
And she had this one experience that changed her whole life completely. She was a Christian and she thought she was doing the will of God. In her mind and her understanding, she thought that, you know, she was giving women an opportunity to choose and to make the decision whether to keep the baby or not. And she genuinely thought that she was doing the right thing until she had an experience while so the one doctor that they have at the clinic, they do an ultrasound while the baby's being aborted. So it's like policy that if you want to, that's basically the procedure that you need to go through.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she said that she had told women for years that it won't hurt the baby, because she was told that it doesn't hurt the baby, until she saw the baby in the monitor. She was doing the ultrasound, so she was sitting with the device on the mom's tummy, and she was looking at the screen, and while all of this was happening, the doctor had inserted what he needed to insert and all of that, and was looking at the baby and started seeing, as soon as the device was inserted, started seeing the baby start to move and wiggle and the legs kicking really hectically.
Sure.
And just like that, it had, it had been suctioned and the baby killed. And she said, until that moment, she never realized just how much the baby is a human, how much the baby is alive, even at that stage of their life. They're still so aware. Their organs have been fully formed at that stage. I think that was at 13 weeks, she was saying. And there's just so much fact that people don't know, and they just assume that it's okay because, you know, under the guise of reproductive rights or progressive law, and we don't actually know the full facts, and then we hurt ourselves. And she said for years she didn't allow women to share their hurt. She just blocked them out after they had an abortion. She just...
so maybe to protect yourself in a way.
Yeah, I guess not to face the reality of it, you know.
Yeah.
And so it is a very real thing.
So that's Focus on the Family. Part 1 was yesterday, part 2 is today. And I asked Megan to specifically share a little bit of that story, because joining us now on the line is Vaughan Luck, all the way from Durban, and he's a friend of Melissa Hertz, and so he's a friend of the show. Vaughan, thank you so much for being available to us this morning.
Jonathan, thank you for having me.
I hope you were also able to hear what Megan was just sharing about that Focus on the Family broadcast of yesterday.
Yes, I did hear it quite clearly.
Okay. Yeah, so we've asked Vaughan just to chat to us because last week, at least to my knowledge, the information or the news broke that New York, the state of New York, has brought in a new reproductive rights law. And before we go any further, I must just put on a parental guidance sticker here because there might be young people listening to the radio at this time. We're not going to be we're not going to be graphic in description or anything like that. We want to be, and we are aware of the fact that there are kids listening to this, but we need to also talk about this and just highlight the concern. So having done that, just going back, so reproductive rights law that's been passed in the state of New York, which is in America, and it's quite a shocker. Vaughan, please inform those who perhaps are not aware of what's happening.
Yes, okay, first of all, Jonathan, I'd just like to say, it's a good thing, not that they've passed the actual bill, but the fact that it's brought so much attention to this. First of all, for people out there to realize that New York is not the only state that has got this legislation in place for abortion up until the day after birth or the day before birth, up until the full gestation age of the child. There are numerous states that do have these laws already in place, but this specific bill has sort of, for some reason, gripped some hearts in the minds of the Americans, and it's brought a lot of the sort of disinformation that the pro-abortion or pro-choice movement likes to bring out. Like you were speaking with Focus on the Family, where they speak a lot about reproductive rights of a woman, and it's sort of a very disguised and vague terminology. And the RHA bill, which is the Reproductive Health Act that has been signed by Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York, has been around for about 10 years already. And there's a very liberal group that's been pushing this law. And before I go any further, I just want to explain to you guys that, they're not happy that women are now able to have abortion rights up until birth. They want to push it even further than that. At the moment, the bill that's been signed in New York, what's happened is they've taken, in New York, it used to be governed under the Criminal Control Act. So all the guidelines for abortion were governed from the penal code. They've now moved that into the healthcare system, so it's become what they're now labeling as reproductive rights. And they're basically saying that there should be no limits whatsoever. There should be no gestational limits restricting access to abortion care, which is up until birth. They're also saying there should be no reason why a person seeks an abortion at any point. It's no one's business, and there should be no basis for any restriction. There also should be no prosecution. That person should not be prosecuted for any outcome of their pregnancy because it's up to the woman to decide what she wants to do with her body. As far as minors are concerned, they are now still wanting to push the fact that no parent should be able to get involved when a minor wants to have an abortion because it's got nothing to do with the parent, and there shouldn't be parental consent for even kids as young as 12, 13, 14 years old. Personhood should also not be discussed when it comes to reproductive rights. They say that fetal personhood laws should be separate from pregnant people and their rights and their autonomy. Now, this is crazy because how do you separate personhood from a baby inside a stomach, just like we've discussed now where you heard about the ultrasound? And this is the misinformation that the pro-abortion movement does. They keep branding a baby as a clump of cells and it's not really formed, it can't really feel pain, there's no brain activity, etc., which is absolutely, absolute rubbish. And we need to start educating people more into realizing what the development of the child is all about. As Christians, we should understand this already because before we had ultrasound machines, before we had all the science and medical terminology that we've got today, God's word way back when it was first written spoke about, you can read Psalm 139, you can read Jeremiah 1 verse 5, where God says, before you were formed in your womb and before you were knit together, I knew you. And in Psalm 139, it speaks about how you were fearfully and wonderfully made in that secret place.
Yeah.
So that to me speaks about a baby in a womb and how perfect it is already in whatever stage of development it is. And you can go through the Carnegie stages of development, which is the Bible of embryology, which is accepted in medicine, and no doctor in their right mind disputes it. And they, in there, clearly states that life begins from fertilization. And we like to say that life begins from fertilization because often we say life begins at conception. We must remember remember that fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube, and it takes 7 days for that zygote to travel down the fallopian tube and then embed itself in the uterine wall. Once it's embedded, that becomes conception. So if you say life begins at conception, the abortion movement likes to say, oh no, but that's fine, because in the first 7 days, it hasn't been conceived yet. We can still do a microscopic abortion then. So we like to use the term life begins at fertilization, which is exactly from the moment you have the seed cells meeting, life is there. There is something growing and there is something living, and it is not stagnant, it is alive. And all of our potential, everything that we are as a human being, you and me included sitting here now today, from that very first cell being formed, in that DNA strand, everything is known about you. I mean, it is crazy specific, from your eye color to your hair color, to whether you were going to be a sporty person, whether you were going to be more academic, whether you're going to be more introvert, whether you're going to be more extrovert. The size of your shoes even, what size your foot is going to be as a fully grown person is already known in that genetic material. So when you come and say to me that, you know, babies are not babies until they're born, or a person is not a human until it's born, to me that is a lot of rubbish. But unfortunately, because it is being pushed in our school systems, especially in America and now in South Africa as well, with the comprehensive sexual education that's coming into our schools, they push this quite big. You get a lot of disinformation, and people, unfortunately, on the street, because it's a learned person that is speaking to them, they sort of just believe it. And what abortion clinics don't do is offer you ultrasound. And they don't offer you an ultrasound for a reason, because they might have an ultrasound because it's raw and Maryscope or anywhere like that, especially in Cape Breeze. They're very good with how they do their abortion procedures, because they know that there's always people processed. But they won't show that ultrasound to the girl or the lady that comes in there. They will just do it to make sure that they are covered, that person is of the right, that people is of the right age for them to do the abortion in South Africa, which is over 12 weeks. But they won't show that ultrasound to the person, because they know for a fact that as soon as a mother sees an ultrasound and they see that baby moving in the womb, they start seeing fingers and toes and head and body, and they start realizing, hang on, but this is a little baby in here. It's not a frontal cell. What am I doing? And they are in it for the money and for no other reason.
Yeah. Vaughan, you've given us a lot to think about and to process. Thank you for just highlighting that. And I think it's so important that, you know, not just as adults that we understand, but that we also, as parents, that we need to speak to our children, obviously at the right age, you know, talk to them in an appropriate manner based on their age and so forth. But at the end of the day,
for me is key.
Yeah, information is key. You're spot on. And also, at the end of the day, we as disciples of Jesus Christ, as people who call ourselves Christians, we need to make sure that if the government wants to push an agenda on us, on the nation, with regard to the sanctity of life and things like that, that we need to stand up and let our voice be heard.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Vaughan Luck, thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure, Jonathan.
Lastly, is there a thing, I mean, I know that there's a petition doing around with regard to that New York State abortion law. Obviously, there are petitions, but is that an effective way for us to make our voice heard?
Yes, look, petitions are always good because it raises awareness. And as you know, there are various organizations, African Action down in Cape Town, they do the march on the 31st of January every year to go to Parliament, and they lay the little coffins down outside Parliament to remind the politicians that they signed this death sentence back in 1997. There are various other life changes that happen throughout the country. There's one happening tomorrow in Durban and Ballito, in case there are any KZN listeners. There is the major National March for Life, which happens in Durban on the first Sunday of October every year, just outside Gateway Theatre of Shopping. And we have about 2,000 people that come to that. I'm part of the National Alliance for Life that organizes that. And it's 3:30 first Sunday in October every year. And that really is a 4-kilometer walk through the neighborhood of Mhlanga. And with 2,000 people holding placards and singing and speaking about abortion, people handing out pamphlets, it really does raise awareness. But we need to do it on an individual level. You know, we are called as Christians to be salt and light. When you talk about being salt and light, it's not a passive thing, it's an active thing. So people must realize that as a Christian, you are called to be an activist. And the book of James is very clear, and I'll end with this. In James 4:17, it's a very sobering thing that he says to his fellow brothers in the Lord and to the church itself. He says, "For those that know what is right but choose to do nothing, for them it is sin.
Sure.
The last thing I want to do is get to heaven one day and for God to judge me on what I didn't do.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't think about that.
Yeah.
So it's just go to church and sit in church on a Sunday and know about abortion and go, yeah, well, it's not really my thing. Unfortunately, if you're a Christian and you believe in God's word, you have to make it just.
That's it.
And we need to take personal ownership of this. And just like it's taken since 1973 in America when Roe versus Wade was passed, the abortion movement or the pro-life movement started, and it was started by the churches. They are now bearing fruit. How many years later, decades later, they are now seeing, although there is more laws being passed to make things less restrictive, you must understand 26 states are making it more difficult to have abortion. That's 26 out of the 50. So that is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Exactly.
So they are seeing progress, and it was the church and the Christian movement that spearheaded that whole pro-life movement in America. No one else. And we need to do the same in South Africa.
We have to, yeah. Vaughan, thank you. That's where we're going to leave it. Really appreciate your time this morning. And we've got details of something that's going to be happening in Cape Town on the 1st of February. Hey, Megan?
On the 31st of January,
Okay.
so Friday.
Friday.
There's going to be a march happening from 1 p.m. until 1:30.
That's Thursday, actually. If
This
it's the
Thursday,
31st,
yes.
yeah.
So Thursday, the 31st of January, at Parliament, at the gates of Parliament, at the corner of Ruland and Plain Street.
Thank you so much for that info. Vaughan, great chatting to you and all the best.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. God bless.
God bless.
CCFM 107.